focus less on who's delivering them and within what constraints they're being delivered, then I think we can achieve some of the challenges and meet some of the challenges that we face. But that will be a process that needs engagement right across the public sector, and that's why the independent review of public spending will help us in that respect.
All right, John Swinney, thanks very much indeed. Well, with me now is the leader of East Renfrewshire Council, Jim Fletcher, and the leader of East Lothian Council, Dave Berry, who joins us from Edinburgh. Jim Fletcher, let's talk about the future in a moment, but this budget that's been agreed today, what effect will that have on your council?
Well, our budget in our council is not a greatly expansionist budget. It will go up by approximately 1.75%. So there is a growth in real terms in the budget. But obviously when you take wage increases and so forth into consideration and general inflation, there's obviously pressures, and there will be some rationalisation in the way we deliver services in East Renfrewshire. So
have you already sat down and thought, well, look, how are we going to cope with that? I mean, what sort of things will you not be able to do?
Well, for this year, I don't think there'll be a huge reduction in the services that we deliver to the people of East Renfrewshire. There'll certainly be a degree of remodelling of the services. For the future years, though, we are planning for budget reductions in areas of about 4% per annum.
Right, and so this would go along with what John Swinney's been saying?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, well, let's come on to the implications of that in a moment. Dave Berry, just tell us what this means for you this year. We'll talk about the future in a moment.
Well, I think what Jim's been talking about is exactly the kind of situation most councils find themselves in. If they've had a reasonable stab at the couple of % efficiency savings over the last couple of years, and they've already been limbering up for something on the order of this. We've known about the 4% number that's been touted about since last summer, and I'm sure a lot of other councils like us have been planning for that. But the real point about this year is it's preparation for the subsequent years. Those are going to be the tough ones.
Right, and how, I mean, if we have cumulative cuts in your budget of something in the order of 15–16% over the next 4 years, I mean, that is a different order of cut than councils have been having to make for a long, long time, isn't it?
It's not just, it's a completely different philosophy. Councils have been used to, relatively speaking, increments, and so you've been able to pay wage increases plus do an extra couple of things. This is a completely different order of things. So it's not just a question of looking at what we do with the services. It's, as John says, we have to reinvent how we present the services. This is going to mean working with other public bodies. It's going to mean streamlining in a way that we've never seen before. But I think most importantly, you have to back off and use this year to come at it from perhaps an almost different way of doing things.
I mean, obviously you became well known for the suggestion that I know you made for other than financial reasons, as well as financial reasons, that schools might be taken out of local authority control or arm's length. But I mean, have you got any other ideas of the kind of things that councils will have to stop doing if they're to meet this kind of challenge?
I don't think we can afford to have all the different offices, for example. One of the things we're looking at is, can we work with the health service to have a day centre and a local surgery in the same building? Can we provide social work, care for elderly along with the NHS in a joint building so that we don't have the overhead of a hospital, a small hospital in the town and a small care home, put them together? A lot of these things can be done better without the service itself suffering.
Is that the sort of thing you're looking at as well? I mean, Pat Waters from COSLA was alluding to the sort of thing David Berry's been talking to here the other night when he said that, you know, for example, there must be scope for the NHS to cooperate more with local authorities and vice versa.
Absolutely, there is scope in all manner of things. Transport's an obvious example where we all have our transport fleets for our various services. But general asset management within local councils will be looked at. And as you know, there's already the Arbuthnot review in the west of Scotland, and councils are engaging with that in a very positive fashion.
Yeah, the trouble with that, though, is that there's been talk about these sort of rationalisations for years, and it's never quite happened. I mean, just take transport, as you say. I mean, it doesn't take an economic genius to see that if several councils in your area got together and had a fleet of vans which you purchase centrally, A, you'd have more clout in doing a deal in purchasing the vans, and B, you could share them round a bit. But that doesn't happen, does it?
Well, it hasn't always happened to a great degree. I think the budgetary pressures in the future will certainly drive that. But there's a willingness, not just within local government, but I think in the whole public sector generally, to look at shared services.
Now, what about the council tax freeze? I mean, you're going to have to sign up to that again for a year. How long do you think realistically that can go on?
Well, it's not for me to make that decision, but I certainly on a personal basis don't think it's a very good use of public finances. Given the financial pressures in the next few years, I think most councils would wish to see some level of increased revenue coming in through council tax.
Well, David Berry, I mean, presumably you support the government's council tax freeze, but for how long? I mean, because it's not just the financial implication, isn't it? I mean, the longer this goes on, the more it becomes clear that you, as a local government, even if you are SNP and the same party as the government that's in power, are losing the autonomy that you used to have as a local council to set tax rates.
I don't see it that way, because what we've done is we've looked for 2%, as I said, year-on-year efficiency savings. That was a novelty for the council. What's really galvanised me is the way that staff and officials have actually engaged with that. We've set them a whole new set of goals, and we've also devolved a lot of responsibility to them. What I'm glad to say is they're responding to that. We're like a team that's in a tough game together. I'm getting the sense that we're being faced with real challenges, and they're responding to the real challenges. I accept that.
But I'm curious to know, I mean, and you heard what Jim Fletcher said there about transport costs and all the rest of it. Yeah. I mean, have there actually been any concrete discussions, for example, between the three councils and the Lothians to say, look, can't we pool some of our resources together? Have you actually had any discussions with the NHS, for example, about it?
There's something we call LBEF, even Edinburgh, Lothians, Borders and Fife, and we've sat down over the last 18 months with, it's the 4 in the Lothians plus the Borders plus Fife, because that's the city region that we really need to try and crack on with this. There are 5 projects on the stocks just now where we're looking at shared services.
I just briefly, has anything actually happened in your area? I mean, have councils in your area sat down together and said, look, what are we going to do? Can we pool something?
Yes, I mean, we share our emergency planning procedures with the 3 Renfrewshires, and there's been a fair amount of work to ensure that councils work together.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed. A quick look at tomorrow's front pages, starting with the Scotsman, hatchet gang to find cuts in Scots services. That's their take on the independent review that John Swinney was talking about earlier. The Times, there it is, UK deliveries halted as car crisis deepens. This is Toyota cars. The Independent, MPs and expenses, the final damning verdict. It says, and if I could flip this page, which I can't at the moment, but I can, The Guardian, MPs ordered to pay back more than £1 million. And that's all we have time for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow.